This week's portion, Ki Tavo, has at least two things that I find absolutely fun and fascinating. First, there's all the curses, which, you know, when we read, we're supposed to kind of read under a hushed breath. We don't get all excited over, and we just kind of rush through and move quickly past all the strange, weird, scary stuff because, oi! Second, we are commanded to bring our first fruits. Very exciting. Because after all, we are supposed to, you know, be grateful. God helped us, made the soil arable, gave us the knowledge with which to create and grow things. And as we collectively stand, we're actually told liturgically what it is that we are supposed to say in the temple when it stood. Arami Avdei Avi, my ancestor was a wandering Aramean. By the way, does that sound familiar to anybody? I'm so glad that you pay attention during Passover because, as you all know who love Passover, you enjoy the matzah getting you all riled up or bound up. We are sitting around this Seder. We are asking the 4 questions. We're enjoying the wine because, after all, hello, one of the best parts. And we are having some nosh, and the story unfolds on 2 different parallel tracks at that point after the 4 questions. One is, my ancestors were a wandering Aramean. And that's what I think we focus on. After all, we were refugees from where we began, and we ended up in Egypt. And it got me thinking deeply that that's what we want to remember. Not only did we want to remember it when the temple was destroyed, the rabbis intentionally inserted that concept into the Haggadah so that every single person once a year would say it. No longer are we offering up the first fruits, but we are recalling that we were refugees. And what does that really mean? We are also, at the same time, during Passover, told not to hold revenge, regret, whatever, toward the Egyptians. There's even a midrash that we read that talks about the splitting of the Red Sea and how Pharaoh died and others died with him, and we're not supposed to be celebrating. The rabbis were very intentional. And yet, there is one other thing that comes up about our memory that we're supposed to remember. It happened in the Torah portion just a smidgen ago, where we're supposed to contemplate and remember all about Amalek. Does anybody remember anything about Amalek? Great. It's my chance to be your Torah teacher or biblical scholar. I love the Bible. I kind of nerd out on it. Either way, we are told to remember what Amalek did to you along the way when you came out of Egypt. You were weary and worn down, and they met you on your journey and attacked all who were lagging from behind. They had no fear of God. And we are told we're told don't despise the Egyptians even though we were strangers, but we are supposed to blot out the name of Amalek. Remember, don't forget. In a way, it kind of reminds me of the thing like, don't focus on the pink elephant, and everybody focuses, of course, on the pink elephant. But either way, that's what we're supposed to remember. How Amalek got us when we were the most weak. And it's as if that story didn't end, because Amalek's narrative for us continues. We have the story of King Saul, who was captured by the Amalek king Agag. Obviously, we failed in wiping them off the map because the prophet Samuel, the prophet, was instructed to tell Saul to destroy Agag and Amalek and all of their cattle. But the king spared Agag and his flock. In the book of Esther, it describes how Haman was the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, an Amalekite. And so Haman is associated with Amalek. And then, as if that didn't get you all excited about how Amalek just keeps appearing and becoming a manifestation of our enemies, I want us to think about what happened in the Dead Sea Scrolls, if you've ever paid attention to those. If you haven't, that's fine, I'll remind you. Don't worry, you're not lost. Amalek was described as one of the sons of darkness. And Amalek was going to be defeated and will be utterly destroyed by the sons of light in a climactic battle at the end of all time. And then the three major Jewish revolts occurred in the 2nd century that dramatically changed how we contemplated and considered the other and in evil. Most important, you know about the destruction of the temple, but beyond that, there's one that kind of gets a blip in history. 135, the Bar Kokhba revolt happens, the Romans come through, and according to the rabbis, so much blood was shed that the sea turned red from all the blood that was spilled. It was a watershed moment, not in the best way. The Talmud goes on to describe specifically in that uprising that there was the last fortress of stronghold, the destruction of Betar. And here we read in the Talmud, Rabbi Zera says of Rabbi Abba, who says of Rabbi Yochanan, who's there. These are the 80,000 officers bearing battle trumpets in their hands who entered the city of Betar when the enemy took it and killed them, women and children, until it was red everywhere. The rabbis were haunted by the violence, haunted by what it really means to hold on to an idea, haunted by what it means and what should we do, and chose to de-escalate violence in rabbinic literature thereafter. They questioned what to do and think about Amalek. It does remain and has since a potent symbol of something to be engaged. Maimonides went on to think through and talk about the need to defeat it. And eventually we see how Amalek was morphed all throughout the Middle Ages, that existential evil thing that was about to destroy us. In Orthodox writings, we even see during World War II that Amalek is equated with the Nazis. And so we have these two things that we remember. We remember Amalek and the commandment to wipe out our enemies, existential at all costs. And we remember that we were a refugee, to be kind, to be compassionate to others, because we were strangers once in a land too. And so I'll throw this at you, this wonderful thing, this wonderful idea that the memory that you nourish is the memory that grows into something around you. When we face hatred and challenges, do we willfully conjure up Amalek? Do we willfully want to call out that hatred and take vengeance? Do we remember the real dangers that Amalek, in a bizarre way, through examining the third revolt and what that really means? Do we risk losing our humanity? Or do we find in the contrast, Aramim Avdei Avi, to embrace our own vulnerability, embrace empathy? How are we going to embrace our sacred tradition and our memories? And what will we conjure up when faced with life's challenges? The rabbis remind us that Moses taught us, do not despise an Egyptian because you were strangers in his land. I think when faced with this tension, that should be our guiding principle too. The principle of compassion, the principle of forgiveness, the principle of acceptance. We have to embrace the complexity of history. We have to embrace the complexities of our memory, our spiritual and inherited memory as well. We can remember hardships our people have faced without losing our capacity for compassion. We can remain vigilant against threats without seeing the world in stark black and white only. When we encounter individuals who live on the margins of our community, we can remember Aramim Ovid Avi, and let our memory of being a stranger inspire us to welcome strangers, inspire us to engage in acts of justice, and inspire us to protect the vulnerable. Yet when we face hatred and anti-Semitism and are fearful of how will we react and respond, let us also remember Amalek, but for how that memory can serve us best. Let's not use it as a call toward hatred and vengeance, but as a reminder of what those real dangers can be for us again. Let's do so without losing our humanity, without forgetting that even those who oppose us are human beings created in the image of God. Perhaps the transformation of Amalek from a physical enemy into a symbolic one can be a guide for us. Just as the rabbis struggle to channel the image of Amalek, just as they struggle to find meaning and realize in the aftermath of the bloodshed of Betar that they had to find a way toward peace, we too can find constructive ways to address the threats we face without perpetuating cycles of hate. It is scary times we live, not dissimilar from those the rabbis faced before. They survived, and we will too. Shabbat Shalom.